Welcome to our channel, Fun and Friends. I'm Avalon.
I'm Sabrina.
And I'm Jasmine.
And welcome to our channel. Oh, and this is Cuddles. And welcome to our channel, where we are currently reading The School of Good and Evil, Chapter 18, The Roach and the Fox.
Just to recap on our last chapter, Sophie, to show her deeper self, as Agatha had suggested, started teaching classes, beauty classes and stuff to help nevers. An interesting fact is Tedros did start joining into the classes. Don't quite know if he was doing it to be genuinely curious or to get a closer weigh in on why she was doing the classes. But because she was focusing too much on those, she wasn't studying for her tests. So she is now last place in school, and everyone stopped going to her class. And her and Agatha were talking about things, and they had the same idea, but Agatha originally didn't want to do it, which was her taking Sophie's tests for her and doing her homework for her to help her raise her score. So
she thought she would enjoy it too much.
And then at the end, even though Agatha originally said no, she turned herself into a cockroach and snuck into Sophie's room and said basically, yes, I'll do it. Let's meet up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. All right. Chapter 18, The Roach and the Fox. Suppose mine glows green or brown or something, Sophie yawned, stretching her legs. Something in the Malice common room was made of burlap. Everything in the Malice common room was made of burlap. The floors, the furniture, the curtains, like the barbarous itch chamber. I'm not doing it if it clashes with my clothes. Just focus on emotion, barked the roach on her shoulder. Like anger. Try anger. Sophie closed her eyes. It's glowing. No. What are you thinking about? The food here. Real anger, you oaf. Magic comes from real feelings. Sophie's face scrunched with effort. Deeper. Nothing's happening. Sophie's face darkened with her fingertip, flickered hot pink. That's it. You're doing it. Agatha hopped excitedly. What were you thinking about? How infuriating your voice is, Sophie said, opening her eyes. Should I think about you every time? For the next week, the Malice common room turned into a cockroach night school. The Murgify spell only lasted 3 hours, so Agatha worked Sophie like a slave during driving her to make her fingertip glow, to fog a room and flood a floor, to tell a sleeping widow from a weeping willow, and to even say a few words of giant. Sophie's ranks immediately improved, but by the 4th day, the long nights had taken their toll. My skin looks gray, Sophie croaked. You're still ranked 68, so pay attention, berated the roach on her book, swan crest glimmering on her abdomen. The wood-wide plague began when Rumpelstiltskin stomped so hard the ground cracked. What made you change your mind about helping me? And from the ground, a million poisonous bugs crawled out and infested the woods, sickening scores of nevers and evers, Agatha said, ignoring her. They even had to close this school since the bugs were so highly contagious. Sophie flipped back onto the couch. How do you know all of this? Because while you stare at mirrors, I read poisons and plagues. Sophie sighed. So they closed the school for bugs, then what happened? This is where you've been sneaking to? Sophie swiveled to Hester at the door with black pajamas, flanked by Annadole and Dot. Homework, Sophie yawned, holding up her book. Need light. Since when do you care about homework? Said Hester, looking greasier than ever. Thought beauty was a full-time job, mimicked Annadole. Rooming with you is such an inspiration, Sophie said, smiling. Makes me want to be the best villain I can be. Hester eyed her for a long moment. With a growl, she turned and led the others out. Sophie exhaled, blowing Agatha off the couch. She's up to something, they hear Hester snarl. Or she's changed, piped Dot, waddling behind. Roach on her book? She didn't even notice. By the 6th night of schooling, Sophie had risen to 55, but each new day she looked more like a zombie, skin sickly white, eyes glassy and bruised. Instead of a fancy new frock or hat, now looped around her dirty hair in a wrinkled dress, trailing steady notes all over the tower like breadcrumbs. Maybe you should get some sleep, Tedros mumbled to her during Yerba's lesson on insect cuisine. Too busy trying not to be the worst girl in school, Sophie said as she took notes. Insects are often available when mealworms are not, Yerba said, holding up a live cockroach. Look, you can't expect everyone to listen to you when you're ranked lower than Hort, Tedros whimpered. When I'm number 1, you'll ask me to forgive you. You get to number 1 and I'll ask you anything you want, he snorted. Sophie turned to him. I'll hold you to that. If you're still awake. Remember, remove the inedible bits, Yerba said, and tore off the roach's head. Agatha shuddered and hid behind the pine shrub the rest of the lesson. But that night she almost jumped from her thorax when Sophie told her what had happened with Tedros. Everboys always keep their promises, she said, bouncing on knobby roach legs. It's Prince Code of Chivalry. Now you have to get to rank 1, and he'll ask you to the... Sophie? Sophie answered with a snore. By 10th day of Cockroach College, Sophie was only at 40. The circles around her eyes were so black she looked like a raccoon. By the next, she slipped back to rank 65 when she napped during Lesso's test on Nemesis Dreams, fell asleep during Henchman, knocking Beazle off of Belfry, and lost her voice and special talents after a low rank. Your talent is progressing, Sheba said to Annadel, who managed to make her rats grow 5 times bigger. Then she turned to Sophie. Here I thought you were the great witch's hope. By the end of the week, Sophie was the worst villain in school again. I'm sick, Agatha said, coughing into her hand. Professor Dovey didn't look up from her parchment-strewn desk. Ginger tea and 2 slices of grapefruit, which repeat every 2 hours. I tried that, Agatha said, increasing the volume of her coughs. Now is not the time to miss class, Agatha, Professor Dovey said, stacking papers under sparkling pumpkin weights. Less than a month before the ball, and I want you to make sure our 4th-ranked student is prepared for the most important night of her young life. Do you have an Everboy in mind? Agatha exploded on a paroxysm of hacks. Professor Dovey looked alarmed. Feels like plague, Agatha wheezed. Professor Dovey went white. Quarantined in her room, Agatha the Roach now accompanied Sophie to all of her classes. Tucked behind Sophie's ear, she whispered the first sign of a Nemesis dream. Answer, tasting blood. Steered frost giant negotiations during Henchmen, and told Sophie which scarecrows were good or evil in Yerba's Forest Challenge. On the 2nd day, she helped Sophie lose a tooth in uglification, match monsters during Sadler's exam, lackeys, sweet talkers, harpies, child eaters, and determine which of Yerba's beanstalks was poisonous and which was edible, and which was Dot in disguise. There were hairy moments, of course. She almost ended up on the bottom of Hester's clump, barely survived a hovering bat, and nearly turned back into herself in special talents before finding a broom closet just in time. By the 3rd day, Agatha hardly glanced at her good homework and spent her free time learning evil spells. Where her classmates struggled to make fingers flick, she could keep hers going by thinking about things that made her angry. School, mirrors, boys. Then it was the matter of following a spell's precise recipe, and just like that, she could do magic. Simple stuff. Nothing more than playing with water and weather, but still, real magic. She would have been paralyzed by the incredulity, the impossibility, except that it came so naturally. Where the others couldn't summon a drizzle, Agatha conjured thunderclouds in her room and splashed the odious murals off her wall with a squall of lightning and rain. Between sessions, she stole out into the bathrooms to try out new spells for suffering. The lights out jinx to briefly darken the sky. The sea swell cursed to summon a giant wave. Time evaporated when she studied evil. So rifled with power and possibility, she could never get bored. While waiting for Pollux to deliver her good homework one night, Agatha whistled while she doodled. What, pray tell, is that? She turned to Pollux in the doorway, head on a hare's body, staring at the drawing. Oh, me at my wedding. See, there's my prince. She crumpled the page, coughed. Any homework? After chastising her for slipped in the ever ranks, Explaining every assignment thrice and berating her to cover her mouth when she coughed, Pollux finally left in circus of hops and falls. Agatha exhaled. Then her eye caught the crumpled doodle of herself flying through flames, and she saw what she had been drawing. Nevermore. Evil paradise. We have to go home, she mumbled. By the end of the week, Agatha had led Sophie on a magnificent winning streak in all of her classes, including Yerba's trial tune-ups. In these one-on-one duels to prepare for the upcoming trial by tale, Sophie beat every person in her group using approved spells, whether stunning Raven by a lightning bolt, icing Bellatrix's lips before she could call for an animal help, or liquefying Tedros' training sword. Someone's been doing their homework, Tedros said, ogling hidden. Tedros said, agog. Hidden under Sophie's collar, Agatha blushed with pride. Before it was dumb luck. This is different, Hester griped to Annadel as they bit into the lunch of charred cow tongues. How is she doing it?
I've had cow tongue.
Charred, though.
It was on the grill, yeah.
It kind of tastes like meatloaf.
It's just a little chewy.
Yeah. Good old-fashioned hard work, Sophie said, swishing by in shimmering makeup, ruby red hair, and black kimono sparkling with gems that spelled F is for focus. Hester and Annadel choked on their tongues. By the end of the third week, Sophie was up to 5, and her lunchtime lectures had resumed due to popular demand. So had her black-robed fashions, bolder and more extravagant than before, in a grand pageant of scalloped plumage, fishnet bodices, faux monkey hair, sequined burqas, leather pantsuits, powdered wigs, and even chainmail bustier. She's cheating, Bellatrix hissed to anybody who would listen. Some rogue fairy godmother or time-turning spell. No one has time to do all of this. But Sophie had time to design a satin jumper with matching nun's whipple and a sparkled clamshell dress and matching shoes for every new look. She had time to beat Hester in Uglify a ballroom challenge, write a report on wolves versus man-wolves, and prepare lunchtime lectures on wicked success. Ugly is new beautiful. Building your body for sin. She had time for one girl fashion show, Rample Rastier Rebel Priestesses, okay, and still wrestle her way past Annadel to 2 in the rankings. This time, Beatrix didn't stop Tedros from falling for Sophie, but Tedros tried valiantly to stop himself. She's a never. So what if she's beautiful or smart or creative and kind and generous? And Tedros took a deep breath. Evers can't like nevers. You're just confused. He felt relaxed when Yerba hoisted another good or evil challenge. This time the gnome turned all the girls into blue pumpkins and hid in the forest's voluminous patch. Just find an Ever, Tedros scolded himself. Find an Ever and forget about her. This one's good, Hort yelled and flicked a blue shell. Nothing happened. The other boys couldn't tell the difference between pumpkins either and started debating the merits of each. This is not a group assignment, Yerba bellowed. Clinging to Sophie's blue vine, Agatha Roach watched as the boys split up. Tedros headed west towards the turquoise thicket and stopped. Slowly he turned to Sophie's pumpkin. He's coming, Agatha said. How do you know? Sophie whispered. Because that's the way he looked at me. Tedros walked up to the pumpkin. This one's an Ever. Yerba frowned. Look closely first. Tedros ignored him, clasped its blue skin, and in a burst of glitter dust, the pumpkin turned into Sophie. A 16 puffed in slimy green smoke over the prince's head, and a 1 in black over Sophie's. Only an evil can disguise as good, Yerba commended, and with a wave of his staff, he erased the F off of Sophie's dress, and once and for all. And as for you, Arthur, I suggest you study your rules. Let's hope you don't make a terrible mistake when it counts. Tedros tried to look ashamed. We can't find any, a voice called. Yerba turned to see all the boys with low ranks smoke over their heads. Should have marked them, he sighed, and waddled into the patch, jabbing pumpkins to see if they yelped. With the gnome gone, Tedros let himself smile. How could he tell the teacher he didn't care about rules that had led him to the god-awful Agatha twice? For the first time, he had found a girl who had everything he wanted, a girl who wasn't a mistake. I'd say you owe me a question, son of Arthur. Tedros looked and found Sophie wearing the same smile. She followed her eyes to the Never scoreboard above the forest where Almerade had packed her name to the very top. The next day, Sophie found the note on her lunch pail. Wolves don't like foxes, Blue Brook at midnight. Tea. What does that mean? She whispered to the roach in her palm. It means we go home tonight, Agatha gushed, antennae beating so fast Sophie dropped her. The roach paced the mildew burlap of the Malice common room floor, eyeing the clock as it ticked towards midnight. At last, she opened the door. She heard the door open, and Sophie entered in a seductive black sheath dress, accented with long black gloves, beehived hair, a necklace of delicate pearls, and black-tinted spectacles. Agatha nearly bust at her carapace. First, I told you to be on time. Second, I said don't dress up. Look at these glasses. Aren't they chic? Save your eyes from the sun. You know, the Evergirls sneak me into all sorts of things like this now. Pearls, jewels, makeup to add to my ensembles. At first I thought they were just good deeds, and then I realized too, no, they like seeing their things on someone more glamorous and charismatic. Only it's so cheap, gives me a rash. Agatha's antennae curled. Just unlock the door. Sophie bolted the latch. She heard a crash and spun to see Agatha, red-faced, pale body, rumpled in a burlap sack. I must have mistimed it, Agatha sputtered. Sophie looked her up and down. I prefer you as a roach. There has to be a way to get new clothes when you turn back, Agatha grouched, wrapping herself tighter. Then she saw Sophie fondling Tedros' note. Now listen, don't do anything stupid when you meet him tonight. Just get the kiss and... My prince came for me, Sophie mooned, sniffing the parchment. And now he's mine forever, all thanks to you, Agatha. She gazed up lovingly and saw her friend's expression. What? You said forever. I mean tonight. He's mine tonight. They were both silent. We'll be the heroes of Galvadon, Sophie, Agatha said softly. You'll have the fame and riches and any boy you want. You'll read about Tedros in your storybooks for the rest of your life. You'll have memories from when he was once yours. Sophie nodded, a pained smile. And I'll have my graveyard and my cat, Agatha mumbled. You'll find love someday, Aggie. Aggie shook her head. You heard what the schoolmaster said, Sophie. The villain, like me, could never find love. He also said we couldn't be friends. Agatha met Sophie's lucid, beautiful eyes. Then she saw the clock and jolted to her feet. Take off your clothes. What? Hurry, we'll miss him. Excuse me, but I'm sewn into this dress now. A few minutes later, Agatha sat next to Sophie's clothes held in her hands. You have to do it with conviction. I'm naked behind the ugly couch. I don't do anything with conviction, let alone make my finger glow or turn into a rodent. Can't we make a more appealing animal? You're 5 minutes from losing your kiss. Just picture yourself in its body. How about a lovebird instead? It's more me. Agatha grabbed Sophie's spectacles, bashed them into a clump, and threw them over the couch. Want me to do the same to the pearls? Thump! Did that work? Sophie's voice asked. I don't see you, Agatha said, whipping around. For all we know, you turned yourself into a newt. I'm right here. Agatha lost her breath. But you're more me, Sophie breathed, a ravishing plush pink fox with sparkly fur, bewitching green eyes, succulent red lips, and a bouncing magenta tail. She clasped the pearl necklace around her neck and admired herself in a shard of broken glass. Will he kiss me, darling? Agatha stared, mesmerized. Sophie watched her in the mirror. You're making me nervous. The wolves won't bother you, Agatha babbled as she unlocked the door. They think foxes carry disease. Plus, they're colorblind. Just keep your chest down so they don't see the swan. Agatha. What? You'll miss Hip. Do you want to come with me? Agatha turned. Gently, Sophie curled her tail around her friend's hand. We're a team, she said. Agatha had to remind herself she didn't have to cry. Sophie the fox pattered through the blue forest, past willow trees shimmering with sleeping fairies and wolf guards, who shrank from her as if she were a snake. She skirted sapphire ferns and twisty oaks of the turquoise thicket before slinking to the top of the bridge overlooking the moonlit brook. I don't see him, Sophie whispered to the roach snuggled into her neck's pink fur. His note said he'd be here. Suppose Hester and Annabelle played a trick. Who are you talking to? Two blue eyes glowed in the darkness across the bridge. Sophie froze. Say something, Agatha hissed in her ear. Sophie couldn't. I talk to myself when I'm nervous, Agatha whispered. I talk to myself when I'm nervous, Sophie said quickly. A navy blue fox stepped out of the shadows, swan twinkling on his puffed chest. I thought only princesses get nervous, not the best villain in the school. Sophie gasped at the fox. It had Tedros' tight muscles and half-cocked grin. Only the best good can disguise as evil, Agatha intervened, especially when it has love to fight for. Only the best good can disguise as evil, Sophie said, especially when it has love to fight for. So it really was a mistake all along, Tedros said, circling her slowly. Sophie flailed for words. I had to play both sides in order to survive, Agatha rescued. I had to play both sides in order to survive, echoed Sophie. She heard Tedros' steps stop. Now, according to the Prince Code, I have a promise to fulfill. His fur brushed against hers. What would you like me to ask you? Sophie's heart choked up in her throat. Do you see who I am now? Agatha said. Do you see who I am now? Sophie breathed. Tedros was quiet. He lifted her chin with his warm paw. You do know this will throw both schools into upheaval. Sophie gazed into his eyes, hypnotized. I do, whispered the roach. I do, said the fox. You do know no one will accept you as my princess, said Tedros. I do. I do. You do know you will spend the rest of your life trying to prove you're good. I do, said Agatha. I do, said Sophie. Tedros moved closer and their chests touched. And you do know I'm going to kiss you now. Both girls gasped at the same time. An iridescent brook water lit up the foxes' blue and pink faces. Agatha closed her eyes and said goodbye to the world of nightmares. Sophie closed her eyes too and felt Tedros' warm, sweet breath on his tender mouth as his tender mouth grazed her lips. But we should wait, Sophie said, pulling away. Agatha's bug eyes flashed open. Sure, of course, obviously, Tedros stammered. I'll walk you to your tunnel. As soon as they walked back in silence, Sophie's pink tail curled around his. Sophie looked at her and surrendered a smile. Tedros looked at her and surrendered a smile. Agatha watched all of this swelling red, and when her prince finally vanished into his tunnel, she bolted onto Sophie's nose. What are you doing? Sophie didn't answer. Why didn't you kiss him? Sophie said nothing. Agatha dug her pincers into Sophie's nose. You need to run after him. Go now. We can't get home unless you kiss. Sophie brushed Agatha off her face and disappeared into the dark tunnel. Writhing in dead leaves, Agatha finally understood. There was no kiss because there would never be a kiss. Sophie had no intention of going home. Ever.
True colors are showing.
Mm-hmm. Chapter 19 is, I have a prince.
How rude. Your friend just, slaved over all of your classes for you.
She is evil.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's just showing through.
It's starting to show. I think Agatha's starting to catch on. That maybe she really is actually evil.
Yeah.
At least I hope so.
I mean, that's pretty evil, having an evil person convincing a princess to basically do all of her villain work for her so she didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, so this week we're only going to have one chapter up due to the fact that I'll still be gone when she leaves for her vacation.
Yeah.
Which is this week. So it'll just be this chapter this week, and next week it'll go back to the 2 chapters a week.
Yep. And then we should return to normal.
Yes.
Yes. So just bear with us.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.